We continue now at the top of Daf Tesvav Aleph and Meseches Gittin. This is Gittin Daf 15a. The Gemara is in the middle of bringing a Mishnah and Baba Basra to show that there's a machlokas tanoim by a shchiv meira, whether amira, whether a statement creates a kinyan, and we're going to use that machlokas tanoim to explain a machlokas tanoim in a brisa that was quoted on the previous Amud. The Gemara here is in the middle of the Mishnah, and the Chachamim say to Rebbe Lazar, we're going to show you that Amira creates a kinyan because there was a story where the mother of the sons of Rochel, she said she distributed her property verbally. She said, "Give kivei nasi labiti, give my brooch to my daughter. V'hi b'shnei maser mana, it's worth 12 mana. V'mason, she died. V'kaimu chachamim es devareh, and the chachamim fulfilled her words. And so you see again that the Amira created the kinyan. Amar lahem, so he responded to them. Rebbe Lazar responded to the chachamim. B'nei Rochel tikbreim imem, the sons of Rochel, let their mother bury them. Rashi says tikbreim imam. Kalolahi, this is a curse. Kalolahi means to say lo yalu alei v'lo yizacher b'beis hamedrash l'raya. Don't bring them as any proof in the beis medrash. Lefisha rishoyim hayu sheyimekayim kotzim b'kerem, because they're rishoyim, they're wicked people. Well, Rebbe Lazar kilayim. Then Rebbe Lazar says that the kotzim b'kerem that they were doing was a form of kilayim. V'lo nilmed mehen raya. Therefore, you can't have any proof from their behavior. Lefisha lo dikdaknu b'hen. We weren't careful with them. Echaysa osa tzava shemitoch shayu rishoyim lo husku b'beis hamedrash. We weren't careful in terms of how the instruction was made. Since they're rishoyim, they weren't mentioned in the beis medrash, and therefore Rebbe Lazar says there's no proof that can be brought from this story. And the Gemara now applies this machlokas, the Chacham and Rebbe Lazar, to the brisa earlier. And the Gemara says, Tanakama Rebbe Lazar, the Tanakama of the earlier brisa that follows Rebbe Lazar. Rashi explains, Tanakama Rebbe Lazar, Damar Shchiv Meira Uvari Shavim. The point is that according to Rebbe Lazar and according to the Tanakama, Shchiv Meira and Bari are the same thing. Hilka Holech Didei Lav Kizachi Dami. So just like we said on the previous Amud, in this approach that by a Bari, Holech is Lav Kizachi. So by a Shchiv Meira also, by someone on his deathbed also, Holech is Lav Kizachi. Rabbi Nassan, Rabbi Yaakov Nami, Rebbe Lazar, and Rabbi Nassan and Rabbi Yaakov also, they hold like Rebbe Lazar, Afagav demis, lo amin, and mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames. And even though the person who's giving died, we do not say mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames. V'yesh omrim k'rabbanan, the yesh omrim, they follow the rabbanan, and Rashi says, v'yesh omrim k'rabbanan, the divrei shchimera kechsuvin v'chimesurin dami, that again, the words of a shchimera, it's as if it is given over, it's as if a kinyan was made, v'afilu lo meis mishaleach nami, and even in a situation where the mishaleach did not die, yetenu liyorshim mekabel, you give it to the inheritors of the Makabel, calls man shalo chazar mishalech midvarv, as long as the mishalech did not retract from what he wanted to give. So again, the Yeshomrim follow the Rabbanan. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Sha'amr Mishomrim Rabbi Meir, Rebbe Lazar, and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who says in the name of Rabbi Meir, he follows Rebbe Lazar. And Rashi says, Rebbe Lazar midatalo time of b'misa haim lo meis yachzer lo. The point is he follows Rebbe Lazar because it was only because the Mishaleach died. So you have this idea of mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames. Otherwise, it would be returned to him, meaning to say, otherwise we would say that there's no kinyan. That's what the Gemara says. Miyu heicha demis amrin and mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames. Again, they follow Rebbe Lazar, except if the individual died, then they do say. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says in the name of Rabbi Meir that we do say mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames. V'chachamim amrim yachloku. The chachamim say you have to split it. Mesafkalahu, because they have a doubt, as Rashi says. Mesafkalahu ikar Rebbe Lazar ikar Rabbanan. There's a doubt whether we follow Rebbe Lazar or the Rabbanan. V'hecha demis nami mesafkalahu. Even in a situation where the Mishaleach died, there's a doubt. Mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames olo. Do we say mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames or not? V'kan amru, and here they say, again in Bavel, they say, shu da'adif, that you leave it to the decision of the shliach to decide whether he really would have intended to give it to the Yarshim or not. For Rabbi Shimon HaNasi, Maisa Asal Ashmin, and Rabbi Shimon HaNasi, so he's just coming to bring us an incident that occurred along these lines. And the Gemara continues, they had the following question, Rabbi Shimon HaNasi, Nasihu, or Mishmei de Nasi Kamar. What is this Rabbi Shimon HaNasi? Was it that he is a Nasi, he was a Nasi, or does it mean to say that he was quoting, he was saying in the name of the Nasi? And the Gemara says, Tashma, coming here the following proof, Damar of Yosef, because Rav Yosef says, Halachik Rabbi Shimon HaNasi, the halach is like Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. It sounds like he is a Nasi. But the Gemara still says it's not a proof. It's still a question for you. Nasiu o dekamar mishmei de Nasi. What was Rav Yosef saying? Was he saying he was a Nasi, or he was quoting the Nasi? And the Gemara says Teku. The Gemara leaves that as a question. And the Gemara continues, Gufa, returning to what we said above. Amar Rav Yosef, halachik Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. Rav Yosef says that the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. The Gemara says, What do you mean the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon HaNasi? But we hold that by a shchimera, so that which he says, the words of a shchimera, is like it's written and given over, it creates a kinyan. Rabbi Shimon HaNasi was saying it does not create a kinyan. And the Gemara says, Rav Yosef muki lo bebari. So Rav Yosef will say that whole brisa And Rabbi Shimon HaNasi, they were not talking about a shchemera. They were talking about a healthy individual, and so therefore it has nothing to do with the fact that we hold divrei shchemera kechsuvin v'chemisur and dami. But the Gemara says v'al yorshe mishaleach kamer. But one second, Rabbi Shimon HaNasi said it goes to the inheritors of the mishaleach, meaning to say as if the mishaleach died. V'kaim alon mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames, but we also hold that mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames, so it shouldn't go to the yarshim mishalech. If mitzvah l'kaim divrei ames, we should give it over to those who inherited the yarshim of the mekabel, because we should be mekayim, we should fulfill the instructions of the mace. And to that the Gemara says, Tani, you have to learn within the words of Rav Shimon HaNasi, Yachzor l'mishalech, not that they return it to the Yarshim Mishalech, but they return it to Mishalech. The Mishalech is still alive, because if the Mishalech would have died, that enochinami, then we would say mitzvah l'kayim divrei ames. Rashi says, Tani b'mil say the Rabbi Shimon, Yachzor l'mishalech, v'lotisni l'yarshim mishalech. When you learn the words of Rabbi Shimon, the proper text should be that it returns to the Mishalech, not the Yarshim Mishalech, to v'lo meisaskin, because Rabbi Shimon was talking about a situation where the Mishalech did not die. Hadran Allah Hamevi Kama. This is the end of the first parak of Meseches Gittin. If you're enjoying these videos and this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. And please take a look at the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we will now continue with the second parak of Meseches Gittin. And the Mishnah says, Hamevi get mi Medinas Hayam, if somebody delivers a get from Medinas Hayam, from Chutz La'aretz, v'yamra b'fanei nechtav, avalo b'fanei nechtam. He says b'fanei nechtav, but he doesn't say b'fanei nechtam. He says it was written in front of me, but he doesn't say that it was signed in front of me. Or b'fanei nechtam, avalo b'fanei nechtav, or let's say he says b'fanei nechtam without b'fanei nechtav. B'fanei nechtav kulo, b'fanei nechtam chetzi, or he says the whole thing was written in front of me, but only half was signed in front of me. B'fanei nechtav chetzi, or b'fanei nechtam kulo, or he says half of it was written in front of me, and the whole thing was signed in front of me. In all of these cases, puzzle, in all of these cases, it's disqualified. Echad omer b'fanei nechtav, yechad omer b'fanei nechtam. If one person says b'fanei nechtav, and another person, a different person says b'fanei nechtam, puzzle, it is puzzle. Shnayim omer b'fanei nechtav, yechad omer b'fanei nechtam, puzzle. If two people say that it was written in front of us, and one person says b'fanei nechtam, it was signed in front of me, puzzle, it is disqualified. For Rabbi Yehuda machshir, Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher. Echad omer b'fanei nechtav, ushnayim omer b'fanei nechtam. Now, if one says b'fanei nechtav, and two people say b'fanei nechtam, kosher, in that situation, it will be kosher. And Rashi explains, Hamevi b'fanei nechtam chetzio, if he says that half of it was signed in front of me, that means echad min ha'edim, meaning one of the witnesses signed in front of me, the other did not. Echad omer b'fanei nechtav, yechad omer pasul. Let's say one says b'fanei nechtav, and one says b'fanei nechtam, that's pasul. So Rashi explains, if the get is only being delivered by one of these two people, and the other one, his friend, is not even a shliach in delivering, that's why it's possible to the shliach, because the shliach has to be the one to say b'fanei nechtam. And Rashi continues, according to the one who says in the Gemara that we're talking here, where both of them are shluchim, nevertheless it's possible, since only one is testifying on the signature and he doesn't also testify on the writing, so people are going to get confused and they're going to think that you can certify regular shtaros with just one aid. Again, let's say two people say b'fanenu nechtav and one says b'fanei nechtam. Nami pasal mishum haytime. Again, it's possible for the same reason, because people are going to think that you can certify a shtar with one aid. Rabbi Yehuda machshir, but Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher. The cave in the mitzrachinan lasude nami aksiva. Ohu o acher, because since we're requiring testimony also on the ksiva, meaning in the case where two people say b'fanenu nechtav and one person says b'fanei nechtam, so since we're requiring this testimony on the ksiva, either by him or by somebody else, sulo asi lechlufe, people aren't going to get mixed up anymore. They're going to see that clearly this case is unique. Now the Gemara will explain, Rabbi Yehuda is not only arguing on the case where two people say b'fanenu nechtav and one says b'fanei nechtam, but also on the previous case he's arguing even when one says b'fanei nechtav and one says b'fanei nechtam. So even in that case, Rabbi Yehuda would argue, because he says people are not going to get confused. They're going to see that this case is unique. If one says b'fanei nechtav and two say b'fanei nechtam, that's kosher b'gemara mefarshla. The Gemara will explain this halacha. And the Gemara says, Hasu Lamali, why do we need to teach this again? This Mishnah just seems to be a repeat of the Mishnah in the first parak. Hatan Alechadazim, that we already taught one time. Hamevi get Medina Sayam, Tzarech Shayamar B'fanei Nechtam. Fanei Nechtam, we said that if a person brings a get from Medina Sayam, he needs to say B'fanei Nechtam, Fanei Nechtam. This Mishnah is essentially saying the same thing. The Gemara says, if I only had that first Mishnah, it's Tzarech, V'ilo Amar Kosher. I would say it's required, but if he doesn't do it, it's still kosher. B'di'evet, after the fact, it will still be kosher. Kamash Malan, that's what this Mishnah is teaching. The Mishnah is saying that it is puzzle. It is not going to be kosher if this is not done, even b'di'evet. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "B'fanei nechtav chetzio v'fanei nechtam kulo puzzle." If he says half of it was written in front of me, and he says the whole thing was signed in front of me, that's puzzle. And the Gemara says, "Hey chetzio, which half was written in front of him?" Ilema chetzio rishon. If we're saying the first half, v'yamar Rebbe Elazar said, "Afilu lo kasabo l'shita achas lishma." Even if just one line was written in front of him lishma, shoveno tzarich, nothing more is needed. So the first half should certainly be sufficient. Elamar Ravashi, rather Ravashi says, Chetzio Achron, we're talking about the last half, that will not be sufficient. Rashi says, Shita Achas, Shita Rishona, Sheba Shemo Ish V'Isha V'Azman. What it means to say is, that first line is the critical line, because that line has the name of the husband and the wife, and the date, and that's really the only line that the Shliach has to see written. And so again, that's why the Gemara says, that's why Ravashi says, our Mishnah is talking about the latter half of the get. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "V'fanei nechtav kulo, v'fanei nechtam chetzio puzzle." If he says the whole thing was written in front of me and half it was signed in front of me, that's also puzzle. Amar Rav Chisda says, "Va'afilu shnayim mi'idim al chasimas yad sheni puzzle." Even if two people are testifying on the signature on the second signature, that is also going to be puzzle. Rashi says, "Amar Rav Chisda lav lefrushe masnisan asa." Now Rav Chisda is not explaining the Mishnah. Ulu'ukmei masnisan bachi. He's not saying the Mishnah is talking about a situation where there are two Adam on the second signature. But he's saying his own logic. He's saying his own halacha. Ribusa chidish da'afilu shnayim and ashok me'idin shein makirin chasimas yad eid hasheni. Even in this case where the person says b'fanai nechtam chetzio, if on the other signature there are two witnesses, shelo heid hashliach olav, which the shliach did not testify about that other signature, but you have two witnesses on that signature, puzzle, it is going to be puzzle. That is Rav Chisda's halacha. And Rav Chisda explains, my time, what's the reason? Okulo b'kiyam haget, okulo b'takanas chachamim, because it has to be either the whole thing has to be regular standard certification, or everything has to be done through the takanas chachamim of the shliach. But you can't have one aid through kiyam haget and one aid through the takanas chachamim. Rashi says kiyam haget hainu edam hameidin al chosam ha'edim. Kiyam haget means you have two witnesses testifying on the signatures, certifying the signatures, and takanas chachamim is edas hashliach. Sheminu chachamim kishnaim. That's if the shliach testifies, because the chachamim trust the shliach as if you were two witnesses. But you have to have either that one or the other one. You can't have a combination of both. And the Gemara says, Maskif la Rava asks on this. Miika midi di ilu amar chad kasher, hashta di katrei puzzle. Is there such a thing where if one person would testify, meaning if the shliach would testify in the second signature, it's kasher? Now you have two witnesses testifying on the second signature, and that's going to be puzzle. That doesn't make sense. Elam Rava, rather Rava says, afilu even, and Rashi explains, Miika midi di ilu amar chad kasher, haya omer hashliach ani makiram kasher. If the shliach said, I recognize him, it's kasher. Ve'afilu lo amar fanei nechtam. Even if he doesn't say the words b'fanei nechtam that I saw it signed, even if he just says, I recognize. We said that in the first parak. If he says, I recognize the signature, he's also believed. We said that in the early sugi of the Masechta. And so therefore Rava argues that certainly if you had two witnesses, that should be kosher. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tezvav Amud Beis.